Mhm.
All right. Well, happy Wednesday. It is International Women's Day. Every day, we should really celebrate who Creator made us to be. So it is a good day to acknowledge, the strength of our communities. Women are the backbone of our home fires, of our nations, in history. We're taught that she is the most powerful. She carries that good medicine, that good teaching. And throughout history, women have, felt the struggle. There's a time in our nation, where, we didn't have the right to vote. We were seen as less than, but times have changed. Those women who have walked before us, paved really good roads for us so that we can walk. They tore down those walls, and fought that good fight so that we can stand on their shoulders and we can be ourselves. We can walk in good ways today. So we acknowledge those women who've gone before us. I think of the matriarchs, the grandmothers in particularly, and the good teachings that they bring to us, and they nourish and nurture us in so many ways. So happy International Women's Day. Make sure you celebrate each other, and most of all, make sure you celebrate yourself. You are a gift to this world. Wherever you are in this world, you are a gift. There's only one of you, and that should be celebrated. So shout out to all of our grandmothers, our mothers, our aunties, our sisters, our friends. It's a good time to be a woman and to step into our gifts and step into our medicines. All right, and it is Wednesday, middle of the week. I hope you're all doing well. I hope the week has been good to you. So you've joined Innovate BC. We're here on Wednesdays till the end of the month, and then we're gonna switch things up a little bit with Can Do. We're still gonna have a webinar on Wednesday, but it's not gonna be with Innovate BC. So we're gonna transition come April a little bit. So we're still gonna offer the webinar. So glad you're here. Glad you're here. All right. So I always feel like it's important to take a moment, to take a deep breath. I love the power of a pause, just to acknowledge where you are. We acknowledge that, this land that we live on, I'm in Treaty 6 territory, but I'm not from here. I'm a guest. I'm come from Treaty 4 territory. So I think it's always important to acknowledge the land in which I live on, acknowledge that this is, we're part of Creator's world. We're part of this bigger picture, this web. We're just a strand in the web of life. But a very important strand. So acknowledge, all of our relatives. I think of the animals. I have some rabbits always outside of my home that they bring so much joy to me whenever I see them. Think of the plants, the lands, the sacred waters, all of our good relations. And then, of course, our two-leggeds, our family, our chosen family. So we're surrounded by Creator's goodness. So we just want to take a moment and give thanks to the gifts that have been given to us. I always like to think about 3 things that I'm grateful for. So just take a moment, acknowledge and hold that in your heart. 3 things that you're grateful for today. And just, again, gratitude, walking with this thankfulness in our spirit. Helps us to bring that connection, helps us to stay grounded, helps us, especially in those low days and those valleys, to, just to keep our head up and to acknowledge that we are always given good things in our lives. So thank you, Creator. Hi. All right. So let's get on with the show, shall we? This is why you're here. Today's presentation, we got 3 guest speakers. We got Chelsea, Raina, and Erica joining us today. 3 women. This is great. So today's conversation is agriculture opportunities for communities. So today's session will speak to the diversity of food and agriculture opportunities and activities underway across the province of BC, spanning economic development projects to food security initiatives, which is so important, and those somewhere in between. So, lots of topics will be covered, especially with our 3 guest speakers. I'm looking forward to it. So Erica, she is the Indigenous business agrologist Ministry of Agriculture and Food. A little bit about her. She studied at Thompson Rivers University for a Bachelor of Natural Resource Science. And after spending a few years working in the forestry sector, she adjusted paths, so seeking more a people-centered work, and her professional agrologist designation, leading her to join the Ministry of Agriculture in 2007. And as a First Nations agrologist in Williams Lake. Awesome, awesome. So after a decade in the Caribou, she returned with her family to the North Okanagan. So we also have Chelsea as well. And she is the community farm manager. And then we have Raina Thomas. She's the assistant manager, and they work at a community farm at the staff. We're going to go for it. The ancestors will be like, girl, you tried. At the I should know this by now, Statmic territory. And you could correct me when you come on. So this is just a great opportunity just to learn, to be inspired, to hear what's going on in other communities. And then to kind of see what might, work for my community. So we're going to pass this virtual mic to these ladies. There will be opportunity. If you have any questions, put them in the chat box. If you're old like me, sometimes, the older I get, the more I forget so fast. So if you have a question, put it in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we bring it up at the end, because we will have some space for some questions or comments. And we always love to hear from you. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this virtual mic over to Erica and the team. So thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for your life-filled introduction, Michelle. That was fantastic. And welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. Is the sound okay? I'll take some nods. Okay. Well, I'm really pleased to be here today with Chelsea and Raina to talk about food and some of the resources and programs available, as well as, sort of firsthand accounts and reflections from Chelsea and Raina today after I go through my presentation initially. Then I'll turn it over to them, and then we'll have some time for some questions. So let me just bring up my screen here. Oh, this is Chelsea's beautiful presentation. Mine's a little bit, starts out a little bit more boring and bureaucratic looking. Okay, let me just, sorry for the couple seconds this is going to take here. Rejig. Okay, can people see that, or do you see Mike? What do you see right now?
We do see your notes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Hold on. How about now?
Perfecto.
Excellent. Okay. So as Michelle said, I work as the Indigenous business agrologist with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. I'm in traditional 6 territory, so I'm working out of the Vernon office now in the North Okanagan, but I do work sort of provincially on sort of service delivery, as well as program development and delivery, and some other pieces. So really a support person to access some specific programs and services, but also reach throughout the ministry, as well as other to other places within the provincial government, as well as what makes sense. So today I wanted to start just acknowledging the diversity of food and agriculture work across BC. It's really, really, really diverse, which is part of what makes it so interesting and exciting. But it's also, makes it hard to like put in a little box, right? as something like the provincial government might like to do, might have a bit of a tendency to do. I'll go over some of the programs and resources that we currently have available, and introduce something called the Greenhouse Checklist, which is a tool we developed a couple of years ago in response to a really high level of interest and activity in greenhouses. And then I'll turn it over to Chelsea and Rita to talk about their work specifically at Plicat in Statlium territory. And we'll go from there with some Q&A. So again, back to this broadness, and even starting with language. Slowly, we're moving towards like re-acknowledgement and where things should be in terms of talking about Indigenous food systems, instead of always, like from the provincial context, talking about growing food in only an agricultural context. So I want to put that out there. Agriculture was used as a tool of colonization in the province, and it has a very varied and harsh history and current reality in different parts of the province. So, there's different relationships and histories with that, but I feel personally it's an important thing to acknowledge just when talking about this topic. And then further to that, there's a big range of, in terms of my knowledge of what First Nations and Indigenous peoples are working with in the province on community food security, food systems, and agriculture projects, everything ranging from pretty advanced technical commercial operations that might be very export oriented. There's some Indigenous-led hay export enterprises, for example, that exist, where you have other like social enterprises that are very focused on local food production and food security, food sovereignty, taking back that power of food. Food's foundational and it's powerful. And so food sovereignty returning to food sovereignty it's a big deal, as it should be. I see that come up as, in official or in comprehensive community plans and other higher level plans that a lot of communities work with. A lot of the time, food is right in there in the top three to five priorities, which is, just speaks to its foundational nature. And then also just acknowledging that we're talking about everything from land-based wild foods, ocean-based foods, land-based agriculture. There's really a broad range here. There's just a few photos demonstrating some of that diversity. So again, you have from commercial vineyards to, in the top right corner, that's a mostly community production focused garden at Esket in the Caribou in Shawetmagulu, north part of Shawetmagulu. And then you have forage production with hay fields, a lot of beef cattle operations in some parts of the interior. And you have some aquaculture activity. A lot of the bottom left-hand corner in this photo is a native plant nursery in the Lillooet area. Here they're actually growing white bark pine, but their main focus of business is actually growing plants for planting for reclamation. So replanting areas of disturbance within their traditional territory, which that's actually there's a number of very successful enterprises in different parts of the province where nations are sort of taking back that stewardship role with reclamation, which is pretty neat to see. And again, just showing a few examples here. I don't know why I showed this shop. That's not very exciting, but I think it was supposed to be a picture of a greenhouse. This is the Sinai market. This is, I don't know if we have anyone today from Nakasley, but this is sort of the central part of the province, around the town of Fort St. James. The First Nations owned grocery store, which allowed them the ease of bringing produce grown in their local greenhouse into their grocery store. So while there's often, sometimes it's a bit trickier selling into like Save-Ons and Safeways, and there's different hurdles to get through. Definitely not impossible, but you know, different hurdles when it's larger franchises. But with locally owned stores, sometimes this is an opportunity that is, you know, you got the full value chain there. So nations are able to supply to their local markets with more ease, which is a pretty exciting opportunity. Going back to that range of commercial versus, you know, just local, growing more local food and local food distribution. This is a picture from Stwetsum-Heitlam First Nation. This is also in the northern part of Shawat-Magulu, sort of perched above the Fraser River. They have a large community and market garden there, and they really focus on, you know, having a community harvest day that's accessible for their whole, their two communities, bringing the school kids in. They like do a pumpkin grab for all the kids that day, have a barbecue, make it a really, you know, a point of gathering, and do some selling at the farmers market, as well as stock their local root sellers and provide access for their elders for the sort of storage vegetables and root crops. So, you know, this example, these communities are quite rural. They're 45 minutes to an hour and a half from their local commercial center. So the economics of growing some food in this kind of a setting makes a whole lot of sense, especially with where gas prices are going and have went, and just the desire and sense of pride that growing more food locally again can provide. This is a picture of Split Rock Nursery at Squalus. So the photo of the white bark pines a couple slides back. This is the part of the external part of that sort of growing nursery complex there. So it's a mix of outdoor production and greenhouse production that they've been able to build up over time. So a lot of this work is scalable, and I think that's a really important approach, I guess, to keep in mind. Is scalable is great. Starting small, not overwhelming anybody, and just growing as what feels natural to grow over time is just a really important consideration, in my view, to help foster success and sort of growing capacity over time. The other interesting aspect with this particular project is it started out as a partnership between the First Nation and the local environmental society, the Naturalist Society, and they had a model for sort of information sharing on growing that capacity within the nation, definitely with a really strong desire to have the nation lead, like fill all employment opportunities in the future, but starting from a point of, you know, maybe needing to source some expertise from elsewhere and move that forward in a good way as knowledge built up over time and sort of some of those specialty skills that were needed for nursery plant production. So I'm going to touch on some of the programs and resources that are available now. And I will follow up with Tara probably as well, maybe just provide a concise list afterwards that people can access to go to, because it'll be relatively quick and it's hard to like click on a link when you're watching a slide. show on something like this. And before diving too much into the programs and resources that are out there, I just want to emphasize the value of sort of taking stock and taking a planned approach to any work in food and agriculture, and really with the theme of taking stock initially, looking at what you're starting out with, and then looking towards where you want to go, and then what do you need to get there, and sort of have that like sequential look forward. So in terms of taking stock, it's just thinking about things like, what do you want to do? Like, what's the opportunity? And sort of what are you hearing from, if it's an individual enterprise, then like, what are your big like pushes towards wanting to do this work? Or what are you hearing from your community in terms of, do people want more local food? Are they stressed out about the cost of gas and the prices at the grocery store? Do they want to, create some seasonal work opportunities for youth in the community? Do they want to like get the kids from the school involved? Is this purely a economic development endeavor that needs to make a good return on investment? Or is it something that might be able to partner with other initiatives in the community, and other departments in the community to, work together and make something meet the bottom line that it needs to meet in order to work? So just taking stock of some of those considerations initially. If you're growing food, who's the end consumer? And like just beginning to think how the end product is going to get to that end consumer, and like, is storage an issue? Is transportation an issue? And then looking at what you're starting with in terms of skills and resources. What skills are local people bringing to the table? Are there gaps? Like, is there training needed? Do you need to outsource, certain pieces temporarily or for the long term? So just some of those initial considerations, and then matching that with where you want to go. So then, like, how do you fill those gaps going forward? And what does that look like over time? Personally, I feel like I'm learning to be a better planner over time. I used to be like, planning, who wants to take time for that? And I probably would have been like the person who threw the business plan into the dumpster. But I do, as time goes on, I see the value of, more than anything, sometimes I think it's the setting intention and taking time to reflect that can be a value of the planning process, and getting input from a variety of sources, right? Like bringing different voices and perspectives to the table during that process. So speaking to programs that can assist with some of that work, we have had something called the BC Agriculture Development Program available over the past 5 years. It is winding down currently, but there will be something coming up. We may offer this this next fiscal year, so sort of April 1st going forward. We will probably have a bridge year with this program, so it'll continue to be available, and then we want to make some changes and improvements that we know are needed. But what this program can do, it's designed to be flexible to meet people and projects where they are at. But really what it offers is planning and feasibility analysis support, as well as funding for skills development, like related skills development. So there's 2 different streams. One's focused on Indigenous governments, communities, and organizations, and the other one is focused on Indigenous entrepreneurs. And each one is a 2-step process. So applicants can apply to step 1 and then finish that and then apply to step 2. So for the community stream, step 1 is $5,000 worth of support with an extra $2,000 for community engagement. And then step 2 is $10,000, and again, with that $2,000 for community engagement. This past year, we were also able to work in partnership with Investment Agriculture Foundation and the Advisory Council on Agriculture and Food on this Food Systems and Agriculture Partnerships program. And so it is currently closed. However, it had such a wild level of demand. There was $1.1 million available, and the applications that came in were just about $7 million. So, which was good and bad. Bad in that a lot of people didn't receive funding through this. However, it was really successful in getting people's attention on the level of interest and like expressed need in this area. So that brings me to, there was an exciting announcement yesterday about investment in food security in the province. And we will be seeing a significant program going forward focused on Indigenous food systems. So hold tight, but this is exciting times. Like, this is like, I don't know what multiplier, but really, really, really significant investment over anything I've ever seen in the 15 or 16 years that I've done this work. So it's exciting. I think food is finally getting people's attention after, I don't know, not for a few decades. I don't know. People are seeing the importance. I should say, like, the provincial government is seeing the importance, because I don't think, most of us are pretty connected to that need as a daily foundational need for our general existence. The ministry also has something called the Knowledge and Technology Transfer Program. So this will be reopening April 1st. And this is a program that can offer support for workshops and knowledge sharing. So either bringing in someone external or maybe from like a neighboring community or neighboring communities for like knowledge exchange, forum, whatever that might look like. Again, there's built-in flexibility for the program. So it has a few different streams, which I've outlined here, but again, I'll send this information through Tara to participants. But communities have accessed it in the past for like beekeeping workshops, seed saving workshops. Those are a couple of the recent examples I can think of, but come to the program with your ideas and needs, basically, and we'll make it work on our end. And then lastly, there are some guides available that I'm happy to mail out to people. One's this New Farm Startup Guide, which is a good resource for anyone looking at, like, anyone who wants to start up their own farm. It's more like geared towards entrepreneurs, less so like community enterprises. But so there's that guide. This Growing Your Farm Enterprise is more like, expanding your existing farm. And then there's also this guide for lease agreements, and this probably isn't the audience we have today so much, but I know a lot of nations might lease out parts of their agricultural land to local producers, and it's just a guide to help. Sometimes those are just handshake deals, but this guide provides some language and examples of ways to, maybe some stewardship components or employment opportunity components that for consideration that people might want to work into those lease agreements. And then finally, this planning for food security is something that the First Nations Health Authority put out during COVID. So it's available online as well, and it goes through some neat tools and considerations and sort of outlines some potential processes for planning for food security within your community. So I wanted to point that out as well. And again, as mentioned earlier, this greenhouse checklist, takes people through some key considerations, hopefully prior to investing in a greenhouse. Greenhouses are expensive and they're kind of precarious. They can be precarious structures with wet wind and snow load, etc. So taking time for, site selection, structure selection, looking at any complementary buildings or infrastructure that might be needed around them. This checklist sort of takes people through like sort of that whole process. It's not meant to like be the be all and end all, but it's meant to like sort of cue ideas and get people thinking. And I do have like a more of an expanded presentation on the checklist, but I'm not going to go through that today. But would be happy to, provide it. Otherwise, if there's specific interest from any of the attendees, we can figure something out. So I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea and Raina now. I thought what would be great, this is an action shot of Chelsea taking a soil sample. The regional agrologist from Kamloops and I were up there last, and our intern, we were up there last summer and did a little soil sampling session, which was kind of fun. So anyways, I'll turn it over to Chelsea and Raina now. Chelsea, would you like me to like advance your slides?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Erica. I don't really know how to share my screen properly, so if you are good to take care of that, that'd be awesome. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Never seen that photo before, so that's cool. As Erica said, my name's Chelsea. I'm from outside this territory. My parents are first and second generation settlers from the UK and from India, and I've been living in this community for just over 2 years, and within Chatelaine territory for 5 years now. So still learning lots here, and I've only been working at Okemue Community Farm for this will be our second season. So again, just over a year, and yeah, learning lots. I'm joined by my coworker and my friend Raina today. Raina, you want to say your name, where you're from?
Hi, my name is Raina. I'm from Houston, and I was raised here pretty much my whole life. And this is going to be my second season farming. Super exciting. I get to be a little more hands-on in the planning aspect of what we're going to be doing this year. It's all brand new. I love it so far.
Yeah, it's been awesome working with Raina. It's exciting going into the second season, feeling like I have a co-worker support. So with that, I'll just get into, if you want to go to the next slide there, Erica, and just explain where we are and what we do. As we said, our name is Okemue Community Farm. So we're located in the Cleetkit community, which is one of the 12 Chatelaine communities. It's an interesting place to be. We're actually really close to the municipality that's here. So the town of Lillooet, we're kind of located like right above the town of Lillooet, but everywhere is pretty mountainous, and things can become remote very quickly. And we experienced a lot of being cut off from supplies really fast over the last few seasons, the wildfires and then the slides and winter being hard. So yeah, it feels like a really important time to be working on this project, but it's actually been going for just over a decade now. This farm has pretty much been in existence for about a decade, and it's grown slowly over time. But as we said, we're located in the Cleetkit community, and we're hosted by the Okemue Center Society, which is a nonprofit that is up here in Cleetkit and was started by Cleetkit communities and families who essentially just wanted another organization that could serve their families and their community members directly, that was kind of outside the band structure. So yeah, their office is located right beside the piece of land where we've been farming, and they're really incredible support to our project. I don't think we'd really be able to do the amount of stuff we've done in the last few years, and generally just been able to keep the whole project going if it weren't for the Okemue Center. So having an Indigenous led nonprofit right in your community and like on reserve has been really cool to work in this type of place. And then, yeah, on top of that, the farm is just an amazing resource here. And we have quite a lot of infrastructure, which I'll explain about. But in the early 2000s, there was some families who decided to donate their land to the community and basically have it be preserved specifically for food security. So it's been many different iterations of sort of community gardens over the years. There was a very large orchard planted at one point. At one point, there was quite a few people that were just farming for their own personal food, like had community plots. A very large greenhouse built. There's a little medicine garden. And so there's been a lot of different people over the years and various like workshops that have brought a lot of other people in from the community. And then I don't know, like I said, it's only my first year. My first season, I just finished working for this organization, but there was a bit of a lull in farm management for a while, and just a transition in the type of activity that was happening. There was someone who was very dedicated and was sort of taking it in they did a lot of the community farming part, and then they were also sort of trying to take it in a bit of a business aspect. So creating like a business for specifically organic dried goods. Eventually that person stepped away from the project. And so after they stepped away, things kind of calmed down and there hasn't been as much activity, but the land continues to be there. And so when I started working here just over a year ago, we had a lot to start with and then a lot to build on too. And it was definitely lots of just getting to know what was going on in the community and who did what and who had been involved before, and understanding the relationships between the organizations here as well. And so, yeah, that was kind of the first season, and we're going into it with a lot more knowledge this time, which is exciting. This is a list of the infrastructure that we have. So the entire area is approximately 5 acres, with 1 acre of that being surrounded by our new electric fence. It's a bear and a deer fence that we got last year. So that wasn't there for the first, I guess, 10 years of this garden being here. And I think that pressure has gotten worse over time, and it made the fence really important. I think that was part of the reason. Also, there was a lull in people sort of using the garden. It became really challenging, I think, to have a garden in there with no proper security to protect your crops, and as well as the bears really going to town on some of the fruit trees. It was just a really necessary investment. But so last year, that was one of the big infrastructure things we added, but it's been great. So our orchard and our field is fenced off now. We also have a large greenhouse. So it's 25 by 50 foot, and we don't currently grow in the ground inside of it. We're actually hoping to replace it this year, and just in the process of finding out about the grant money and then making it happen. But it's a great size. It's just there's a couple issues with it. Erica could probably talk about this more. The reason for the greenhouse checklist, it's a big greenhouse. There's a lot of space. But it needs replacing. It's not structurally safe anymore. It's hard to regulate the temperature. So we can't really use it right now, except for the early part of the spring to raise some of our seedlings. But before that, we're kind of bringing them in and out of our office where we start our seeds in here. That's not ideal, but we're just kind of building on our progress this year and really, really hoping we get the regulated greenhouse this year, but we'll see. It's still great to have on site. Within our community, our fields, we have one 60 foot by 100 foot section that last year Raina and our other employees were part of planting and taking care of throughout the season, and essentially filling it with as many perennial food crops as we could. So not annual veggies, but things we won't have to plant again, things that will spread, things that will take up space and compete with weeds and provide different sources of food and nectar for pollinators. And there's a mix of traditional like native plants in there, as well as some non-native medicinal herbs. And it's really exciting to see what's going to come back in there this year. And it feels like another kind of new part of the garden that will hopefully bring more health to it as we go through the years. We've also got a BCS tiller. There's a tractor in the community. We haven't used it yet, but it has been used in previous years. Various hand tools and a weed whacker. And then we just finished our walk-in cooler and our dry storage sea cans. So we didn't have those last year, but that's another project that's sort of half finished when other folks were working on the project that we were just able to get some funding for. So now it's done and we have it for the season, which is really great. It's a 20-foot sea can, so it's much bigger than what we're going to need, and we'll be able to share that with the community and open it up. People can hopefully hang meat in there, and yeah, hopefully it'll be more ways to bring other people into this project besides just the farming part, because not everybody here wants to farm. We have a multi-purpose food security building, which was built by some trade students from TRU. Raina was part of that cohort, and it was built not this summer, but the summer before. So it's another part of our project, just trying to get funding to finish that building. We actually got the IFSAP funding that Erica mentioned, the infrastructure funding. And so that's really helping us get all of our construction's crazy expensive, but we're hoping to be able to finish it and use it maybe partway through the summer. Last year, we were using the Open Center kitchen. And again, it's been another really great asset to have here. It's just not ideal if we're wanting to scale up. So we have a ton of space and we have a good amount of infrastructure now. We just need to slowly build our people power and bring more people and more skills in, and figure out ways that we can make our space more accessible. So I put some pictures on there so for some talking relief. There's a photo of our greenhouse, our walk-in cooler and dry storage. Those are half buried sea cans. You can kind of see that there's a hill behind them. And this is all located within pretty much the 5 acres that the farm is, with a bit of a field in between, room for growth. But yeah, our food security building is there, and there's a shot of our orchard. Yeah. Okay, so just touching on what we did last summer. So this was May 2022. So when I started in the previous fall, it was pretty weedy in here. Sunflowers are actually have like spread all throughout this field. So it's really beautiful, but they return every year. And so there's a lot of sunflowers, a lot of bindweed. So it looks really nice and clean there, but that's fairly freshly tilled and composted. I did manage to get a cover crop of rye in there in the fall. It didn't grow huge before we had to till it in, but you can sort of see on the edge of that picture there, the right side, that's about how big the rye got, maybe a little bit bigger in some sections before we had to till it in, but definitely worth doing. I would suggest that if anybody's working with like a large field that's been really weedy and unmanaged, I can't say it'll like get rid of your weeds, but I think it will help it seemed to help the soil a lot. It's hard to say because I don't have any other seasons for comparison, but our food was great this year and we were able to grow a lot. We only added compost, some good organic high quality compost from within our region, and some organic fertilizer, which was an all-purpose 444, and it was Gaia green, so it had lots of different stuff in it. Yeah, just having to make some field decisions without knowing exactly what we were going to grow and how much, and not knowing what the soil texture was actually like. So yeah, sticking with the basic farming practices I know, and just putting in the organic matter and hoping for the best, and mulching a lot. So yeah, this is some of what we grew. Yeah, these are just more pictures for relief. This is some of the processing that we did on the bottom left corner. Yeah, some of our intercropping. The plan for our community food field was sort of so the context for this field is that we weren't growing anything for market. Last year, I just focused on hiring people and working together to grow a lot of food for the community. So the ways that we did that, I think maybe on the next slide, Erica, we listed what we did last summer. Yeah, so this is kind of what happened last summer. We had 6 employees. Myself, there was 4 people on the farm crew, and another person that was sort of farm crew and orchard manager. And we pretty much all worked together for almost a full 6 months, give or take a few people here and there. We were donating to the food bank twice a week, so that was where the majority of our food was going. It seemed like it was pretty needed at the time. Like, I know they had more people that were coming to the food bank and using it, and that they do get fresh produce, but it's a lot more likely to get taken when it's local and people know that it's super fresh and it's coming from nearby. So that was really fulfilling. It was also quite a lot of work. We also had a free U-pick going on, but that was kind of our the part of the season that we planned less for was the distribution. So it was great in that it enabled us to give away as much food as we possibly could. But honestly, like we had more than we could even give away. So that was one of the lessons learned for sure, is that we can grow a lot of food on a smaller size plot, and still have a lot for everybody. Yeah, we had the fruit harvest and processing. So we had the orchard. When I was working with the crew, pretty much everybody got some kind of training daily on the farm, because pretty much everyone I worked with was new to specifically vegetable farming. Raina probably had the most experience doing landscaping, and yeah, everybody picked up things really well, and it was cool to see everyone's different strengths and see what people were into. We also got to do like quite a lot of food processing together. We did put away a lot of that food, and especially during the really smoky parts of the season when it was like 40 degrees and it was pretty hard to work outside, we escaped to the kitchen and we processed a whole lot of vegetables. We have a commercial sized dehydrator here, which is really awesome. It was purchased quite a few years ago by someone else, but we did a lot of drying food. So through that, we were able to donate over 4,000 pounds of produce by the end of the season. And that was through the food bank, through our free U-pick, and just inviting anybody to come to the garden. Our garden's always open. And then occasionally we did a distribution directly to elders for an event or a meeting. And then there was a reconciliation at the end in the fall, sort of, where we did a really large fresh produce donation for cooking for the event, and then also gave away a ton of our dried foods. And so yeah, last summer was a whirlwind, lots going on, lots of learning and lots of growing, and trying to convince people to take as many vegetables as we could. That was great. But it was kind of like community gardening on a farm size project was kind of my summary of how it went. It was great, and it was a lot. So this is what we're doing this year. Oh, sorry about my PowerPoint cutting off there, but the top says community farming and incubator farming. So yeah, one of the things we ran into, just being like, we have more space than we can manage. We had more food than we can give away, and we weren't even using almost half of the field. And we had planted the perennial section as well. We had a very large section of garlic, and then we had 2 more 50 by 100 foot sections that were all community food. And so that was a lot. And like I said, like there's a lot of people really asking if we were selling and just trying to access food, especially at different times of the season when other stuff wasn't available. So the plan this year is to take a slightly different approach and still do community gardening, but scale that down to 150 by 100 foot plot, and then open up the other side of our field, which is essentially another almost 200 foot by 100 foot section, to 2 incubator farmers. So I don't know if other people have heard of the incubator farming model before. There's lots of different sort of variations, but the idea is essentially that you're providing all the things a new farmer would need to start growing food to sell, and supporting them to do so without them having to first buy their own land, or sometimes even lease their own land. For us, because this is like community donated land, we don't even have to lease it. We're going to pay 2 farmers to take care of 2 different plots, and they'll work together to grow for the Lillooet Farmers Market. They'll both get to keep the income that they make from that. And then on top of that, we'll pay them for 25 hours a week for labor. So this is going to help us take care of sections of the field that we literally did not have capacity for. It's going to help 2 new farmers be able to have a chance to access all our tools, our land, mentorship, support, as well as go to the farmers market and be able to keep what they make and sort of get a feel for how much they can sell through just our our local community channels, because that's definitely one of the big challenges of working here is a larger market is really inaccessible. At least 2 hours to larger markets either way. So we have a really small community farmers market, and it doesn't cost very much to vend there, and it's literally 5 minutes away. So we're hoping with a combination of all these factors and supports that our farmers will actually be able to make, you know, a good livable income for them. And if not, that's definitely why we are including a wage in there. We know that it's really hard to get anybody to work for like $15.95 an hour, which is often what the subsidies are. That's just not enough. And especially if you are really trying to get someone to take the position seriously and the opportunity to grow for themselves and have more autonomy. I did not love managing 6 people. Like, I really want to work with people who are working together to support each other and learn how to grow food for their own purposes, whether you want to be a market farmer, you want to have a big garden, or you want to just do it for your family. There's so many different ways to pull people in. So I wanted to go and try this model this year to see if we can get people to bring in their strengths and grow their way they want to grow, and have a whole lot less weeds on our hands as well, hopefully. So yeah, this is kind of a list of everything that we are going to try and provide. Full disclosure, I'm still in the process of getting full funding for this program. I have partial funding that I've kind of pivoted to cover our spring costs. And then there's a few grants that are fairly sizable that should be pretty accessible to us. The problem is that they don't really come through until partway through summer. So I am trying to work with anyone I can, like trying to pull in local collaborations. There's definitely a lot of local support for this, and we're hoping to have a food security meeting in about a week from now that lets everyone know what we're doing and just tries to pull in anybody who's interested in food security to see how they want to contribute or support what we're doing. This is a really important program in our community this year because as we mentioned, market gardening is pretty hard because of the lack of access to market. And so 3 of the large organic farmers here that have been farming for between like 3 to 10 years, I'd say, are no longer farming vegetables this summer. So if we don't go to market with our incubator farmers, which was not at all the plan from last summer, there will be no vegetable farmers at our market as far as we know, which is pretty crazy because we live in an amazing region for growing food. Like, we really have an incredible climate here, and there's tons of space, really good sources of water, but it's just so hard to access land and for people to do their own stuff in the first year. So that's a big reason why this feels like time is of the essence for this type of project. But I have also seen it in other places, and land access is not exclusively an issue here. So yeah, if anyone is looking for different ways to run community food projects, I'd highly suggest looking into incubator farming models. Yeah, I think that's a good spiel of what we have going on, and we welcome any and all questions.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Chelsea and Raina and Erica. There's a question from Ken. We do have like but 4 minutes left. Just want to first say, before we jump into this question, I really liked what you said at the very beginning, Erica. Well, food security is huge, like so important, but you said food is foundational and powerful. And I really think that you set that up for the rest of today's presentation, and then hitting it home with what Chelsea and Raina are doing. Whoa, powerful, powerful. All right, so Ken's question, how are you deciding which plants to grow? So cash crops versus full range for a community garden. Are you maximizing for soil type and irrigation available?
Yeah, good questions. It was not easy to decide. One thing I started out with here, as I said, garlic was pretty big when there was other people sort of running the project and moving towards the business model. So when I first started here, and I was like, what do you want me to do? They said, we want you to plant some garlic. And I was like, how much? And, and what kinds? And they're like, honestly, just really wanting someone with the capacity to figure it out. And so what I've learned is that we have pretty great soil. It's fairly sandy in texture, but it feels like it's a pretty healthy soil regardless. And we're using all those practices to, improve it. Carrots grew really well for us because we have sandy soil. We had, we honestly didn't even have very many pest issues this year. I truly am wondering if it's just like a first year fluke kind of thing. But yeah, it's a lot of learning. And then because it was for more community gardening, we did mainly things that would be easier for us to harvest and to give to the food bank without a whole bunch of in between. Like we didn't grow bagged greens or anything, or some things that were super finicky. We didn't grow super specialty things that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know what it was. So that was kind of how we decided, but it was definitely a mix of different factors. Also just trying to make a garden that would help me just like show our crew that there's both like farming practices and there's like gardening practices. And so a mix of those things was kind of the idea for that.
Awesome. Like so awesome. I'm so proud of you both, and Erica. So good. That was good medicine just to listen to you and to hear the story and to see those pictures. Thank you so much for being here and sharing, I think, just a glimpse of what's happening with you in the community. And it was so good to hear that, you had an abundance of food, like you had more than enough. And I think of our communities too, and that's rare, right? So food security is such an issue. So that was just really good to hear. So keep going. We're cheering you on. We're hoping, you find the funds for that greenhouse, whatever it is you need, because I think what you're doing is so important. I bet our ancestors are just cheering you on and are excited about this. Really good presentation. Eric, I think you're going to share the PowerPoint with the ladies, and then all of you who showed up today, you will get this sent to you via email. Good resources, good story. I feel honored to have been able to listen to you all this afternoon. So thank you all for joining us today. Innovate BC, Wednesday, International Women's Day. I hope you have a good rest of the day. And yeah, we're cheering you on. We are cheering you on. It's such good stuff that you're doing.
Thank you.
Oh, and look they're on Facebook. Give them a follow on Facebook. Share what they're doing. I think this good news needs to be shared, and people need to catch that inspiration and imagine what is possible. So thank you all so much. We'll see you next time. Be well. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye. Examaga.